Good evening. What follows is a pretty informal video. It's going to be kind of rough. It's my second take. And in this informal video, I'm going to talk to you about the notion of Q.I.N.D.A.R, which is listed on the syllabus. But building off of what we discussed in class last time, for these papers, in essence, we prove an equation where blank equals some abstraction. A person, place, or thing equals some abstract concept. The equation that I'm going to operate with today during my examples is Q.I.N.D.A. Country Fest equals rowdy. And as we get started here, again, one of the things that I'm going to speak about are the types of concrete details that we might muster to prove that abstract quality true. First, some trivia. Do any of you know where Albania is? The country of Albania. Take a moment and consider that while looking at the map. Okay. The country of Albania is actually off the boot heel of Italy, if you know where Italy is up on the map. And Albania, again, is right off the heel. If you need any help and you're a fan of the old TV show Cheers, you might watch this video in the presentation available to you in course documents. But for the sake of this informal video, I'll skip it. Well, what in the heck do Albania and concrete details and this Q.I.N.D.A.R concept have in common? It is Q.I.N.D.A.R. And here we have an example of an Albanian coin that is referred to as a Q.I.N.D.A.R. But in reality, Q.I.N.D.A.R, again, is the Albanian money, and it is the concrete currency we spend in proving the abstract quality we associate with people, places, and things in our one-paragraph essay are accurate quality descriptors. Q.I.N.D.A.R ultimately is just an acronym, and it is a way to remember the kind of concrete details that you can use in proving your points in writing. Q.I.N.D.A.R stands for quick example, imagery, narrative example, data, or statistics, an analogy, and also finally a reliable authority. Well, what do each of those things mean? That's what I'm going to spend a moment on here today. First, quick examples. We used to use a textbook in this class called The Practical Writer. And in The Practical Writer, they said that a quick example is one instance, one occurrence of whatever you're talking about. It's a single bit of concrete factual information. Some sort of fact, a quick little fact that proves or helps to prove that your association of your person, place, or thing with an abstract quality is true. So in the case of Q.I.N.D.A. Country Fest equaling rowdy, some of the quick examples or quick little facts that we could use and will ultimately explain as proof of Q.I.N.D.A. being rowdy include team t-shirts. If you've ever been to Q.I.N.D.A. Country Fest, you know that there are a number of people that wear goofy t-shirts out there and t-shirts that push the edge of appropriateness or good taste, perhaps, but they contribute to the rowdy atmosphere in that place. You might also see folks out there wearing things like, or carrying around things like insemination gloves. And insemination gloves are long gloves that go from the fingertips up to almost a person's shoulder. And it's become tradition out at Q.I.N.D.A. Country Fest to inflate these insemination gloves used in farming to reach in and inseminate cows. People blow them up and use them to wave at the performers up front as part of the fun. You may also have seen the hula hoop girl, who, and I haven't seen her for a couple of years, who is a girl that is famous for doing hula hoop sorts of tricks for free beer. And there was another instance I remember where a guy would throw free giant pickles to the crowd if they would do wild things when he walked by. Ultimately, with these things, when we describe them, we want to be as specific as we can. Within that quick example, we want to get to micro examples. And micro examples are, rather than just saying that there are a variety of wild foods, you could go to the micro level and talk about the fact that there is a stand with exotic meats where you can get things like kangaroo jerky, for instance, which is a pretty wild and rowdy sort of food. Again, get as fine with your level of detail as possible. And micro examples could be included as part of the other sections of this acronym, but frequently they are used when it comes to quick examples or quick facts that prove your point. You can also use imagery. One of the things that we are moved by are the things that all the senses, the things that we hear, the things that we smell, the things that we taste, the things that we touch, and the things that we see. To see is to believe, but also to hear is to believe, to taste is to believe, to smell is to believe. And it's a little known fact that smell is one of our most powerful senses in convincing people, because smell, the olfactory nerves in our nose, are actually connected to memory centers in our brain. So if you can bring up a smell that people then have their own associated memories with, that smell can be an effective tool in trying to convince people of what it is that you're trying to say, if it's the right smell. So when it comes to imagery that we might use to prove our point that Hode Country Fest equals rowdy, some sense imagery that we might use includes the smell, the official smell of rowdiness, which is the smell of BO. What says rowdy more than BO, body odor, as a smell? And obviously that is a smell that we could discuss and that we can explain as part of rowdiness and proof thereof. You could talk about the blare of the speakers and the incredible loudness of the whole situation out there. That would be easily explained as being indicative of rowdiness. Again, you could talk about, and this crosses over from the quick examples to sense imagery, but you could talk about taste. You could talk about, how these tastes are literally kind of rowdy sorts of tastes that are out there at Hode Country Fest. It could be kangaroo jerky, tastes like chicken, by the way, or greasy home-style fries, and, salty and taking risks in terms of your nutrition, which again goes along with the idea of rowdiness. You could talk about touch imagery, like the bumps of people, going by your chairs, the bumps of their coolers against your lawn chair as people are making their way through the seating area. So again, sense imagery. People believe what they can take in by their senses, and you can use that imagery as part of proving that Hode Country Fest is rowdy. Perhaps the most powerful type of detail that you can use in proving your abstract quality is stories. People are moved by stories. Tell me a story that really captures what it is that you're trying to say. So a narrative example is a more detailed story. It's not just a fact that you talk about happening in general. A narrative example, and people mess this up a lot of times, is this one time this happened. And tell the story. It's not a general sort of situation that is recurrent or happens over and over. Again, it is a one-time, this happened kind of story. So that story, though, ultimately should create the kind of impact that you're shooting for. It's a description of a single event, again, something that happened this one time. So if I'm trying to get across the idea that Hode Country Fest is a place of rowdiness, I might tell you the story of a couple of years ago when one of my friends named Tom, this guy loves Country Fest. And every year he would go, and one year, because he'd been too wild in the past, his wife would not let him go. So his friends were really upset that Tom, this kind of person who gets across rowdiness at Hode Country Fest, that Tom couldn't come. But they weren't going to settle for that. They weren't going to let his wife deny them their friend and his role in having a wild time out at Hode Country Fest. So his friends, of which I'm one, made these masks or this little cutout picture of this Tom guy's face. And they literally created a dummy, a life-size dummy of their friend Tom, and they put his picture on top of that dummy. And they carried that dummy all over the place. And Dummy Tom probably had more fun even than regular Tom. I mean, Dummy Tom was up on the stage. Dummy Tom was up on the stage in the pavilion when the local bands played and passed around in the mosh pit. I mean, Dummy Tom was everywhere. And you can see a picture of Dummy Tom up there again with some of my friends and with myself, with my wife, etc. And again, only at Hood Country Fest will friends be so determined to bring along their friends for the sake of the fun that they would create something like Dummy Tom. Again, in detailing that story, I'm getting across the sense that Hood Country Fest equals rowdy. Data. People are moved by numbers. You know, there are certain sorts of folks of a certain kind of brain that they'll only believe things if you have statistical proof of what it is that you're talking about. So, as said in the Practical Writer, sometimes we need numbers. Who doesn't love numbers? Trust them, believe in them, as long as they go along with what it is that we are trying to prove. But you can't just throw any random number in. That number in some sort of way has to be able to be described as being indicative of your abstract quality. So, you know, I could talk about the fact that there are 40,000 people out there packed against each other, trying to outdo each other in seeing who could do the wildest thing. You know, that number is okay. I mean, the fact that there are a lot of people there, that would suggest rowdiness, but it isn't in and of itself proof. So this morning on my way in, I thought to myself, well, what is some better data to get across the idea that Hood Country Fest equals rowdy? And I thought to myself, I wonder if I could discover how many bags of ice are sold out at Hood Country Fest. How many cans of beer are sold out at Hood Country Fest? And I realize not everybody is a drinker. We have an AODA program out here, and it's not cute and funny to everybody. But the fact is that that number would speak to rowdiness pretty clearly. Again, the number of beverages consumed, easily related as a number to the notion that I'm trying to get across of Hood Country Fest equals rowdy. So we have Q, we have I, we have N, we have D, which is data. Next is analogy. This is another thing that people frequently misunderstand. An analogy is simply a comparison between our subject, our person, place, or thing, and something that people already know, allowing an audience to understand a new subject by logical comparison to something that they're already familiar with. Not everybody in here has gone to Hood Country Fest, and because you've not been there, I have to compare Hood Country Fest for you and my audience who have never been there to something that you can probably relate to. So an analogy to get across how rowdy Hood Country Fest is, where I compare something you're unfamiliar with, Hood Country Fest, my place, to something that you might be familiar with, is this. Hood Country Fest is spring break for old people, in that, like spring break, people at Hood are there to escape their reality for a while, being wild and free. It is. It's spring break for old people. For that brief moment of those couple of days, they don't have to be adults, and they can put aside all of their responsibilities, like a student puts aside responsibilities from school when they go off on spring break. And there too, not everybody is familiar with spring break from firsthand experience, but everybody kind of gets what that's about, where, woo, I'm stressed out because of school, so I'm going off somewhere else. Hood Country Fest is analogous to spring break. And again, because the thing I'm comparing Hood Country Fest to is easily understood and easily explained as rowdy, that analogy helps to strengthen my association of Hood Country Fest with rowdiness. So that's analogy. And then finally, reliable authority. Reliable authority is testimony. It is the word of somebody who knows what they're talking about. You know, celebrities might endorse a particular product, and some celebrities are better than others when they're trying to get across the fact that a product is of worth. You want to have people who your audience will be like, yeah, that person knows what you're talking about when it comes to a particular abstract quality. So if I'm going to get across the fact that Hood Country Fest is rowdy, I want the person who is talking about Holiday Country Fest to be someone who knows a little something something about rowdiness. So send the practical writer a person who is in a position to know about a subject, whose expert comments support your own. If you know anything about Holiday Country Fest, and again, not everybody does, but the mayor of Holiday Country Fest is Neil McCoy. And again, not everybody is familiar with him as a country music artist, but let me tell you a little something about him. And I could weave this into my paragraph as well for the folks in my audience not familiar with Neil McCoy. This is Neil McCoy, who a couple of years ago, while recording a live DVD, stood on top of a sheet metal roof in rainy weather in cowboy boots. And if you've ever worn cowboy boots, you know that they're not exactly made for traction. And the fact that this guy was crazy enough, wild enough to get up on the roof, way up, I don't know how many stories high, in cowboy boots on a sheet metal, slippery, wet roof, I mean, that proves the guy is pretty wild and crazy and rowdy himself. So Neil McCoy is saying, again, he's somebody who knows a thing or two about rowdiness. If I included a quote from him who's saying of Holiday Country Fest, this is the best festival anywhere, you're all crazy. The fact that Neil McCoy, this dude who's super rowdy, says that Holiday Country Fest is a place of crazy people and rowdiness, just quoting Neil McCoy, just his word on a Holiday Country Fest as being rowdy is proof in and of itself. So again, I can bring in a reliable authority that proves my abstraction true if I've demonstrated in some way that he actually or she knows what he or she is talking about. So again, Q.I.N.D.A.R details are just details that we are going to infuse into our discussion in the body of our paragraph, in the supporting part of our paragraph. Q.I.N.D.A.R details are concrete details that get across our point, that prove the abstraction is true. Q is quick example. I is imagery. N is narrative example. D is data. A is analogy. R is reliable authority. And whenever it is that you are sitting down to write, and you have to prove to your audience that something is true, you have all of those types of concrete details at your disposal in getting across your point. That's why in the one paragraph essay, we practice the use of those sorts of details so you can make use of them in other types of writing that you will do. Thanks. And again, I apologize for the herky-jerky nature of this video, but it's my attempt for the online folks to hear me explain what they could read for themselves on the PowerPoint, but may not make as clear a sense as it does if I explain it out loud.